She's only worked for me for like several months.
Is she going to survive? Is she going to hang?
I hope.
Yeah.
I think she's great.
She's
doing
great.
great with Dana.
She anticipates what I need, and like there's things just magically there, and I'm like, I only thought I needed this. I didn't speak. And everybody else before us said, hey, I know you think of things that you need, but you have to actually tell us. I'm like, not with Terry.
You increase her pay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking over this last week. I'm like,
she seems to be doing all right. 1, 2, 3, go.
Jennifer Hardy, har.
Believe it or not.
Welcome to the Lawyer Dana Show.
The Lawyer Dana podcast.
Wow, we have a lot to talk about.
Then we're going to do it right after this. And da-da-da-da-da.
Welcome to the Lawyer Dana podcast.
Right. Episode 2?
Episode 2. So we are Todd Bender, part 2. And so Todd, world champion American skeet shooter, only 26 times. And if you haven't seen episode 1, catch episode 1. It's excellent. We talk a lot about skeet, but so you said something that I thought was fabulously wise. Has nothing to do with shooting. Well, maybe. You
I
said
got lucky.
it is about getting lucky. And that's what the shooting reference is. Anyway, you got married at 35.
Mm.
And your comment was...
To thank God I waited until then, because any time before then I was too immature and too selfish, which I'm still to this day. But I was too immature and too selfish to survive a marriage. So after 35 years, I matured enough to be able to handle it, actually.
And so exactly the same with me. I got married when I was 35, and I could not agree more with that sentiment about myself. Maybe that's why none of the relationships ahead of that worked out. But thank God they didn't work out.
well,
You met Summer.
Yes.
I'm very happily married.
Yeah.
I like her quite a bit.
Yeah.
I like to tease my husband, who is 15 years older than I am, that our maturity levels just met in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be accurate.
That's why it works. That's why it works.
He needed a 15-year lead.
Yeah. As most of us do.
So, and then do you mind talking any about your marriage? And
No, not at all.
So, okay, and your wife passed away 8 years ago.
That's correct.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Happens. You know, when my wife died, it was kind of devastating.
Yeah.
We were married for 18 years. It's kind of devastating. And I was kind of screwed up for a while.
I can imagine.
But the way I got out of it, I thought, 50% of the people who are married actually go through this. Pretty simple math. So I thought, I'd pick yourself up by the bootstraps and stop around and get on with it. And it's the way it is. I'm not the only guy on the planet this happened to. Mm-hmm. This happens to 50% of married people. It's part of life.
Yep.
So you pick up and you go on.
At first, when you said that, I thought you were thinking, 50% of people get divorced. And is he about to equate this to divorce? I was like, oh, no, 50% of people that are married, one of them goes first. So
Yeah.
it does. I've never thought of that before.
Not higher math. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's what I was screwed up for about 3 months. That's a long story. Because it rattles your cage. Mm-hmm. It shakes things up.
Oh, yeah.
And I was a little screwed up. Didn't know what I was going to do, where I was going to go. And why would I change what I do? It's what I do, right? But I was contemplating. I was lost. And it took a couple of months. But then I kind of righted the ship.
That's pretty
fast.
fast.
Hey, man, this happens to everybody. 50% of people who are married, it's going to happen to. And it's just, if she was around, she wouldn't want me to founder and be an idiot.
Yeah.
She'd say, dude, just get your squared away and let's move forward. So what did?
So what is it that you did do then? What helped you move out of that negative space?
We didn't say it was going to be tough questions.
Oh.
It was
You're gonna
focusing
start calling me
on.
Barbara.
It
Barbara
was
Walters.
focusing on what I needed to do. So instead of floundering
Winning
around and
mindset
feeling
again.
sorry for myself and
Yeah.
it was responding correctly to what happened.
Exactly.
It's like, all right, where am I at? What's going on? How am I going to move forward? Let's focus on that.
So did you move forward like in your sport? You were like, well, this is my area I'm going to focus on, and you went head first into that, or
You probably already were.
Yeah, that was my response.
He
Yeah.
he. So your thing is, and he's told me like about. I don't really want to go into this, do this, or do anything different, because no matter what it is, if I'm going to do it, I have to be the best.
Yeah.
And I'll just tell you, after spending 4 days with him, that's correct. That is an accurate assessment. And he is the best. I don't know if we mentioned it on this episode, but he's the best. And there's two things that you do, at least until you just recently retired, which was you shot the heck out of some skeet, and you teach other people how to shoot skeet. And like, I mean, I was expecting to perform. Tell Brenda what I told you on day one. So day one, they're talking about. I don't know how it led into it, but what did I tell you about how I perform on
In
different
the
days?
office. I mean, the first 5 minutes. He's like, well, I just want to let you know, no matter what I do,
This is not humble.
I'm the best at everything. And he was talking to a like kind. I'm kind of the same way. And so I listened to her. I went, okay. Well, you're going to get to prove that shit very shortly, dude.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
But he was. He didn't have a clue as to what to do in my sport. I gave him the information. And over the last 3 days, I watched him progress as only a guy who was going to be the best at everything he did would progress. So that's why we love each other. I mean, I've only known him for 4 days, right? And I always say, I got a friendship here because we're like-minded.
I think I liked you within the first. I mean, pretty much right when you first started talking. I was like, oh, I like this guy. At first, when I walked in the room, I was like, oh, what the hell am I doing here? Like,
Yeah.
and then they do this. I don't, should I tell this? You want this part in the air? But they go, so you're going to be the only one, because like for whatever the schedule or something like. And I was like, part of me was like, had this part, like 80% of me was great and 20% of me was run.
Holy
Get that? Like, I am with two crazy guys, and like, what am I doing? Like, I got other stuff to do. Like, I can go make money, you know? Like, we could do the podcast on Friday instead of like, we had to reschedule everything. But then I was like, no, I know Lanny, and why would he be here with this guy? And then after talking, I mean, he immediately, you won me like that. I mean, instantaneously. And then the knowledge and wisdom was just like, I was like, there's nowhere on earth I want to be besides right here.
Well, thank you.
I will
And
say
it would
this about
happen
Dana,
quickly.
that Dana is a great student of whatever it is that he's wanting to study.
That's what I got in the first 5
Yeah,
minutes. I started
yeah.
figuring out, like, Yeah.
One of the neat things about being in his air is he's like my shortcut to life. Like he figures
Yeah,
out the best
yeah.
way to do it, and I'm like, oh, tell me that. I want to do it like that. I don't want to have to go travel down the road. Just tell me how the best way to do it, and I want to copy.
Well,
that.
tell him how we met.
Well, we met I was a client, and
At first, she was a potential client.
I was a potential client.
For a while. Because what was I, number 17 that you interviewed?
Yeah. But it was because everyone was. Now,
And she almost went with me, but it was like I have to go with this aggressive attorney. Did I tell you, like our branding? I think
yes,
I did.
absolutely. Yes.
With
Yeah.
like, we want to
The
get
hard and the soft.
Hard and the soft, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
why do I believe in a soft divorce? Because it's better than a hard divorce.
Yeah.
And
For everybody involved.
yeah, and what I really mean by soft is healthy. It's
Yeah.
not that we're weak or at a disadvantage. It's that we've achieved so well past that level of mastery that we have the mental game that no one else has.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I mean, Lanny was also instrumental in me coming up with that.
Right.
And in developing that, because I listened to the audio of With Winning in Mind dozens of times, if not more. I mean, for a long time. In fact, we have one of those. I think we still have a CD player, and we had 2 Honda Pilots. Like, we had one for a few years, and then we traded it for another one, the exact same car. And when you put a CD in, you could have it memorize it to the memory, so you didn't have to put the CD in, and you just play it.
Yeah.
And I have these fantasies that in the first one that we sold, that whoever it was kept With Winning in Mind on that CD player and has listened to it, and it benefited them.
Life changing. Yeah.
Life changing. Sorry, Lanny. And since then, I've maybe that burned one person buying his book. So
Yeah.
I've only bought about 100 of his books and
He'd
given
be
them away to
pissed about
everybody.
that, by the way.
He would. He's very possessive about that.
Yeah. He's the ultimate capitalist.
But I've bought 100 of his books, so he's only down 1% off of me. So, and I did. I mean, yeah, and I keep buying copies of his book. Like, if I can't find one, I just order some. We had some.
It's up in
Yeah,
the
they are.
cabinet.
They're right there.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
up in the
they
cabinet.
were
We
in
keep
the
it.
set. They were in the set, and I have these other books because me being a student of everything, I got stuck at a Kinko's. Like, they needed to print 5 pieces of paper. It took them half an hour to print 5. It was ridiculous. And Jennifer and I are sitting there waiting. And in the meantime, I'm like, what a very nicely curated business book section that Kinko's has.
Let's check this shit out.
Yeah. And so I bought all of these. I was like, okay, these are good. Like Habits of a Happy Brain, that sounds good. Secrets of Great Leaders, the Leader Phrase Book, 3 Things That Successful People Do, what was the Art of Persuasion, Great TED Talks. I was like, Lanny Bassam style books here.
Absolutely.
But none of these books are the caliber of With Winning in Mind.
I was wanting to know, how do you and Lanny work together? Like, is he the classroom and you're
He
the
is.
practice
So he's the
outside?
mental guy. I'm the technical guy. And we do a 4-day program, which is a big program. The first day is 8 hours in his classroom. There's
So
a lot of stuff.
he's doing
to
all of the classroom
understand-
stuff?
To understand the system, there's a lot of stuff going on. That's 8 hours. And then the next 2 days, it's 4 hours in the classroom, 4 hours in the field, actually shooting, because we need to give you some time to implement it, get your hands dirty, kind of play around with it. And then the 4th day is all in the field. And
That's
we
what you
set
saw
that up
today.
15 years ago, and we decided that we couldn't do what we needed to do in 3 days, and you couldn't stand 5 days. Your brain would explode. It's like,
I might have could have done 5.
So that, well, you could have. But
You want to go out tomorrow? Are you leaving in the morning or are you leaving
I'm
in the
out,
afternoon?
I'm out, man.
I know.
Unless you bring me Corona, then I might consider staying.
I'll bring you Corona. How much Corona you want? I'll scour the city for Corona. I'll send 4 people out to go find Corona for you.
So that's how we came up with that 4 days, and we've done it
Okay.
for 15 years, and it's about perfect because there's a lot going on in his system.
So
You don't learn it in 1 day. So there's
No.
a lot going on, and then there's the implementation,
Yeah.
the execution. When you're on the field,
I didn't even
doing
put
it.
both parts together until today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I knew that we needed today.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even hit him with a system. I didn't require that of him the first 2 days because he had his hands full just executing right, like a golf swing. This is how the golf swing goes. And if I'd have jumped in the middle of his about all the other stuff that needed to be done, I'd have blown his brain.
overwhelmed. Yeah.
So, exactly.
And I think if I would
So
have
he
done the
just-
rehearsal or even the reload, I think if I would have done that, I would have probably imprinted the wrong picture.
Absolutely.
I don't think I was ready to do
Because you didn't
it.
know what the right one was.
I didn't know what the right one was.
So
Yeah.
I left all that alone.
Yeah.
But today, because you were such a good learner, because apparently he's the best at everything he does.
Go freaking figure.
Except this podcast. Here's what I told you. I am very slow and steady and increasing. I continually increase. Always better. But I am the
So he
I am
was
the
doing-
tortoise, not the hare.
He did everything I wanted him to do today. And then I said, all right, I thought about it yesterday. And I looked at him and said, he was on the station. I said, you run the system? He goes, yeah. He wasn't even close.
No, I wasn't. I didn't know. I
But
didn't.
I left it alone because he needed to do what I needed him to do. I didn't want to clutter his brain with other stuff. But then today, third day, which is huge, that he progressed that level. I said, all right, now let's start working the mental game into our technical game. Let's build this whole system. And he did it great. And the amazing thing about it, almost like that,
Oh, it was a different level.
your performance went up.
Oh, it was.
So I had to build the foundation, the skill level down here. He had to know that. That took 2 days. But once we started, then he also spent 3 days working on the middle game, at least learning it. And once he implemented his game, it was crazy.
It was
stupid.
next level. That's
Yeah.
where I thought.
Yeah.
Today, at that moment, those first 2 to 6 shots.
Yeah.
After that, it came together like I totally see the combination.
It's
of
why
Bender
no
and
one
Basham.
pays attention to middle games. They don't have a blueprint. They don't understand it. They don't know what to do, right? But you take a guy, any sport, you take a guy who's technically perfect. He makes no technical mistakes. And he's got a sound mental game. He doesn't make mental errors. How are you going to beat that guy? You're not. Because those are the two things. It's your technical errors and mental errors. And if you got a guy who's trained the mental game and is on top of that, where he's not making mental errors, he's not making technical errors, you're not going to beat that guy. Now, you may on one day, you may beat
Every
him
dog
by
has
a
his
swing.
but
But over the course of time, if you pay attention to your technical game and your mental game, they're not going to touch you.
So, are you training athletes now in your sport? Like, are you working with like kids or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there was
I've
that.
been doing it for 40 years.
So the world champion in
Elise.
is one of their students. He's been shooting for 3 years. He's 17 years old.
Wow.
The world champion, not like the junior world champion.
Yeah, no, won the Open World Championship in Egypt last year. And I worked with him technically. Laney's worked with him mentally 3 years. But the kid's just, he's one of those guys. And we talk about on the field.
Special.
To be great at anything, you need 4 things. Number one, you need some type of physical talent. Hand-eye coordination. Like I said last podcast, if the state of Texas gave you a driver's license, you have enough hand-eye coordination to do what I do. So you have to have some natural talent, right? Ability, which we all do. Next thing, you need time and resources. You need to have the money and the time to put the train in. Then you have to have good information, which is why people come to me and Lanny.
Yep.
So you need to know what the hell to do.
Yep.
You'd be spinning your wheels in the mud if you didn't have good information what to do. So if you got talent, some talent, hand-eye coordination, you got the time and the resources, you've got the passion, and that's the last thing, is passion, and a champion's mindset. And most of those people don't have those 4 things. Especially guys who are working stiff. I've never worked a day in my life. I'm a skeet shooter. Man, it's what I've done forever. So I had time and resources. It's crazy. So I had time and resources, and I had passion for what I did, and I had good information, and I had some talent. That's what's putting it all together.
One thing that you said to me earlier is you were talking about a book you had read, and I have been reading one similar that it's called
Talent is Overrated.
Yeah, the one I'm reading is Talent Isn't Enough. And
Yeah,
so,
same thing.
same thing. Yeah, and you were like, talent only takes you so far. I
Yeah,
mean,
most
anyone
people
that's-
look at the best of any sport and go, well, that guy,
Just
he
talented.
was born with that. In the book, The Talent
gotta
is
put the
Overrated,
work in.
is he outworked everybody else.
Yep.
He had passion for the process. So I was a kid when talking about passion for the process, working harder than everybody else. I was a kid, and you're too young. You remember the Merv Griffin show? You might be too young too.
I never saw it, but I know what
Okay.
you're talking about.
So Merv Griffin. So I'm a kid. I'm like 5 or 6 years old, and I'm watching the Merv Griffin show. It's a true story. And Earl Woods, it's a talk show like Phil Donahue kind of, right? So Earl Woods is on the Merv Griffin show, and Earl Woods is on the Merv Griffin show because Earl Woods has this 5-year-old kid named Tiger who's this golfing phenom. So he's on the Merv Griffin show. It's back in the 60s, right?
His last name is Woods, and the kid's name is Tiger.
Yeah.
Is it that famous golfer
Yeah,
guy?
there you go. So
I don't really follow golf, but everybody knows Tiger Woods.
So Earl Woods on the Merv Griffin show when Tiger was 5, because that's a kid, right? And one of the questions that Merv Griffin asked Tiger was, how do you get Tiger to hit balls all day? And Earl Woods said, get him to hit balls all day. We can't get him to stop. It's like, hey, Tiger, time for dinner. Come in. One more ball, Dad. Hey, Tiger, it's getting dark outside. You need to come in. One more ball, Dad. That's passion for the process.
Yep.
So he's great because of a number of reasons. The 4 thing I just mentioned, champion's mindset, had the resources, had good instruction, but he had a passion for the process. He outworked everybody.
Oh, yeah.
So you can say, well, Tiger Woods, he was lucky he was born that way.
I don't know about that.
He worked harder than everybody else.
Yeah.
Because he had this passion for the process.
Yeah.
Hey, Tiger, time to come in. One more ball, Dad. I'm not done yet. And you look at everybody who's great in any sport, they had all 4 of those things in a row, but probably the most important thing they had was passion for the process. They outworked the competition. They went further. And they didn't have to push themselves to do that. They had a passion for the process. They wanted to do it.
Did you ever have to push yourself, or did you?
No. No, I loved it.
So when did
That's
you
what I wanted to do.
When did you discover you had this passion for? I'm assuming you started with skeet, but I don't know.
I did.
You did start.
I
with
started
skeet.
when I was 11 years old, my dad.
Yeah.
And looking back on it now, from the time I was 11, I was done. That's all I've ever done. There was anything else. And I didn't, after I got out of college, I was a business major, which I think is college talk for I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I still don't, right? I was a business major, and I went to school on scholarship to shoot. Trinity University was the best shooting team in the country, right? The best coach. And so I go to Trinity, and I got out of school, and we talked about this morning. I minored in accounting, which means I took just enough accounting. I didn't want to do that. So I was a business major. That was a good background. But I taught and I shot ever since I got out of college. And if you'd have told me 40 years, I graduated in 82. So if you'd have told me 40 years ago that I'd be doing what I'm doing now, I look at you and go, you're out of your mind, that's crazy. I mean, working with the SEAL teams, doing stuff I do with the military, traveling on the planet, doing this crap. I said, you can't do that because no one's ever done that.
Oh wow, it was unheard of at the
No,
time.
not to that extent.
Yeah.
So, in fact, my dad loved me. I loved my dad. But after I graduated to college, we were having lunch. He lived in New Orleans at the time. I lived in New Orleans. And we're having lunch one day. And my dad, who loved me, right? We were having lunch and looked across the table and said, so, son, when are you going to finally do something with your life? Because I was wasting my time. I was just shooting shotguns. I knew it's what I wanted to do. But he also knew that what I was trying to do,
make money.
no one ever done that. Now, I've made this great life, and I've had this awesome life. And I got lucky. Things fell into place. But I think you create your own luck. But 4 years ago, my dad was like, dude. Now, my dad's passed away, but in the last 10 years of his life, he was more proud of me because I forged his path. But I think I forged his path, and I made a living. I made a good living. Great things have happened to me, but it's because I had a passion for the process. I wanted to do it. So people always talk about their kids and what they want to do, and I don't care what they want to do if they want to do it. If you want to do it, if you have passion for the process, you're going to be great at it.
And in the meantime, we will see you in the next episode of the Lawyer Dana podcast.
The Lawyer Dana Podcast.